This is Sequence, the show where we ask music tech founders to pick 3 tracks that have influenced their approach to their business. I am your host, Tom, and in today's episode, I speak with the CEO of Cyanite.ai about standing in the Indian Ocean, using AI to create perfect music moments, and defeating your inner golem to become the best you can be. Huh? So I'm joined here today by Markus Schwarzer. He is the CEO at Cyanite.ai. Hello, Markus.
Hey, Tom. First of all, kudos on how you pronounce Schwarzer. I've never heard it. I've never heard it that well pronounced.
Excellent. Cool. Step 1 complete. All right. Let's see if you rate my high level understanding of what Cyanite is, and you can perhaps give us a bit more detail. So the top level for me is it helps you understand, index, and recommend music. Do you want to go into a bit more detail and let us know what Cyanite does?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You perfectly described what the sort of technology does, right? But to really understand what kind of value it brings to companies, we have to look at the use cases, right? So understanding one song on a one-track basis, that's of course interesting, right? But once you scale that up, so many opportunities open. Like when you tag an entire catalog really accurately, reliably, then you can derive so many different use cases from that. The predominant use that our customers are putting the technology into use is for a sync, right? So they receive a sync brief, and now they have to search their entire catalog of 5,000 songs, or 10,000 songs, or 50,000 songs, something, millions of songs. They have to search that entire catalog and find that, needle drop, that perfect song. And we enable them, or at least help them to do that more efficiently. Imagine any sort of curation use case, anywhere where music is chosen from somebody for somebody else, but not for the person, for themselves, always for somebody else. That can be a podcast, background music and podcast, and film, advertising, a playlist, right? Spotify playlist, or any other DSP playlist. Everywhere there, our algorithms would come into play.
Got it. So it's not just, I guess, the kind of indexing part, but the time saving, the efficiency, and like you say, the accuracy, which I think perhaps we can go into the accuracy piece in a bit more detail when we kind of hit the tracks. But I think what struck me when we first met is the first company, or your previous company that you founded, was about capturing music moments. And this is kind of about creating moments. It's almost like taking that and flipping it on its head. And that kind of gave me a different conception of what this technology is. It's not just like a database or like a library of tags. It actually allows people to more effectively create the right emotion or the right soundtrack. So I think that was really a kind of light bulb moment for me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you already named the background, the purpose, the DNA of the company. This concept of music moments, of music making any sort of random moment, or having the ability to make any random moment so much more memorable, right? And if you really think about it, these music moments where you say oh, when I heard this music the first time, I did this and this and that. They're almost exclusively very random moments. I was driving my car, or I was walking down the street, but it's really this combination of obviously the music, but also how you felt as a person, not only on that day specifically, but as a whole, in that particular time, the activity, anything that you do, the people that surrounded you while listening to it, and transferring that from the random and the outside world into a more structured kind of way. That's what we are trying to achieve.
Kind of like the hybrid of the structure plus the emotional, trying to come together and create those moments.
It's a lot of magic to it. There's a lot of still randomness to it, but increasing the likelihood of this happening, that's what we're all about.
Speaking of music moments, let's jump into the moments that you have selected yourself. So the first one here, we have Lykke Li, Love Out of Lust. So this is from the Wounded Rhymes album, I think a second one in 2011. Tell us a bit about why you chose this track and why it's significant to you or the business.
Actually, this is right on point right now, because we were talking about music moments, and this was one of the most incredible music moments I had. And this was with that song. So it was kind of the inception of, I want to start a business. I want to have it revolve around that particular concept, because at that time I was traveling in India, sort of also just coming out of a job and like out of like my studies, just finished studies, didn't know really what I wanted to do. And it was kind of like, it started as escaping, running away from the decision of like, what am I going to do with my life now that the studies are finished? And I think a lot of people have that, after education, like the educational track finishes, which is putting you so much on tracks, and then sort of like stops and like, what now? I can really say I ran away to India to like travel and like, take my mind off, but it became this sort of like really epiphany moment for me. And one of the moments that were definitely like that did trigger that was me just standing in the Indian Ocean, just like at sunset. It sounds very cheesy, but it was very profound. If you haven't been, like, go, because it's very warm, so it's like kind of surreal. You stand there and you stand in this like, I don't know, humongous bathtub. I was playing that song and it has this like really like slow kind of rhythm with this, and like, really like sparse kind of rhythm. And you have these like the flowing, like the flows of the waves. And it was just like the perfect blend. I'm oh my God, like, this is why we're here. This like really that profound. It was awesome.
That's interesting. So you kind of were moving away from the escapism, but you were still in that almost kind of transitionary state when you're thinking what's next. And that was a pivotal moment for you on that journey.
Yeah, like, I mean, sometimes pivot is also connected to like, changing kind of ways, but it was more and more like a reaffirming moment, because I was already like, kind of looking into the music industry before. But when I heard that, I was like kind of, it was clear to me that I wanted to start a career there and like, really dedicate my career and the time of my life to do that. Funnily enough, it's still to this day, when you're thinking about why you're doing what you do. And of course, like, if you work on the same project for a long time, you kind of like lose track sometimes, like, what is the purpose and what are you even doing? Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you jump on your bike every single day to ride into the office and like, answer emails and doing all that stuff? Coming back to this moment has been sort of almost like a mantra to like kind of like repurpose what you're doing, recalibrate your steps, and then thinking like, what are you actually doing? Is that in line with the ultimate or like the original vision that you had or I had? And then, in my case, that always worked out. So
I think like this kind of 2010s Scandi type of music is really interesting choice, because for me it's one of these movements that transcends genre. Like when we're talking about this idea of kind of categorization and how we describe music, and you talked about this idea of accuracy, when you kind of think, okay, what genre is this? I'm sure you will see indie pop and electro pop, but I'm hearing also like 60s girl group vibes and also quite contemporary elements in it. When you kind of think of this wider idea of how music is categorized and this concept of how accurate is it, is genre the right way to go? I mean, what are your thoughts on how you would describe this track, or how you would kind of come back to that moment?
That's a very great question, because like, here I am working in music tagging, but then again, like, the greatest tracks of the earth, like, sort of defy it. And it's really hard to talk about it, because like, trying to capture in words what's like so profound to you is quite hard. If you have something, these like genre benders that, you need to have other language to describe that song. So if we bring it back to the technology and what we do at Cyanite, then of course, like, we're trying to give you as many different words as possible. Also, like, understanding natural language. Like, you can just describe that scene. I'm standing in the Indian Ocean, I'm watching the sunset. Giving people as many words and as much language as possible for them to describe that song in their own language, and then being able to surface that. That's a very central thing to what we're doing. Because at the end of the day, like, it should be inclusive, right? Like, everyone should be able to search and find the music that they're looking for. Yeah, and that's our approach to it, I would say.
Just to kind of wrap that piece up, and I'm sure you could probably talk for an hour on this particular topic.
Yeah, if you give me the opportunity. Yeah.
The subjectivity of that moment. So when you say, standing in the Indian Ocean, that could be a million different songs, right? Depending on who you are and what your personal experience. So how do you balance this idea of like almost a universal catalog with that concept of inclusivity? How do you make it personal, but also general enough that people can find the right things?
It's quite interesting that you use the word universal, because we have defined that as our sort of like goal to build a universal understanding of music. Like, how do you connect that to the individual? Like, coming back to the first couple of sentences, it's really like what Cyanide is about right now is where somebody is choosing music for somebody else. We're working only on sound-based and lyric-based analysis. And as of now, like, of course, that can change in the future, but as of now, we are not blending anything with like personal preference. You know, we're strictly in the B2B space, because then we don't have to, like, yeah, of course, individualization is a huge topic. Everybody, you know, perceives music differently. So for us, we didn't want to go into that space. We really want to give people the tools to then choose the right music for whatever they think is the perfect song. So, you know, it's blending AI with human knowledge and with human experience, rather than just like, you know, like shoving down the throat what we think is good for you. Like, I don't know, a traditional DSP would probably do, right? You know, try to keep you engaged as long as possible. So we're a little bit away from that, and we're quite in a spot where we feel very, very comfortable in terms of AI, because we see all these, like, you know, negative effects AI can have. Like, since humans introduced that, maybe 15, 20 years ago, and they were all revolving around personalization. You know, they're all revolving around echo chamber and driving people apart. So for us, it's very nice to be in a space where you're not contributing to this kind of effect of AI, but just enabling people to make more informed decisions and like quicker decisions about music without having to, like, you know, listen to a bunch of music that's not really suitable for their use case. So really, really grateful that we can be in that space of AI.
So I guess we won't see a playlist anytime soon of 50 tracks about standing in the Indian Ocean at a crossroads in your life.
Yeah.
On to the second track. Now we're shifting gears a little bit.
A lot.
Yeah. This is the Lord of the Rings theme from the score of The Lord of the Rings, composed by Howard Shore. And before we jump into it, I have to confess, I have not seen any of the Lord of the Rings movies. I'm one of those people who somehow missed out on it, and now I don't have 75 hours to invest in watching the whole thing.
You know what? I envy you. I really truly envy you, because, like, you know, if I had the opportunity to, like, you know, just be completely blank page and then watch them for the first time, that would be incredible. But the reason I chose this is that it's more sort of an image, a picture for something greater, right? You know, encapsulates sort of like this what these books and the movies are all about, and, you know, less about like taking this one thing and then destroying it, like, you know, putting the goal forward, but it's really more about the journey, and the journey as an individual, the journey as a group, the purpose and vision that keeps that group together, and it's very much a metaphor also for what we were experiencing, like what we experience as entrepreneurs, as also part of a team, as team members, you know, as founders, and like slash, you know, leaders of that company, having all these other team members, like, you know, working towards the same goal. And it's really about, like, you know, the ups and downs, and putting the journey of building this company in a center, and like not neglecting the purpose or the goal, but putting this kind of second, and like seeing the journey as like the number one goal. And there's so many metaphors for what it means to be an entrepreneur. I mean, I could talk probably an hour about like the figure of Gollum alone, like, you know, what it means to be. What is your personal Gollum? Like, why is it thing? And I know you haven't seen it, you haven't seen the movies, but you just have to believe me now. And, you know, what is this? Like, what is overcoming this sort of like person in yourself that is trying to drag you down? Or what is he driven by? Is he driven or is he dragged, right? You know, if he's dragged, what is he dragged by? Like, you know, what are the preconditions and all the upbringing and the, I don't know, trauma. I don't want to talk too big, but like all of the stuff that you bring into the company as an individual. And then how do you moderate? How do you balance this also in a conglomerate of many people? And then, of course, like, it's, you know, 9 fellows in the Fellowship of the Ring. And interestingly, we have 9 core members. So obviously, obviously, like, I've assigned a role to everybody, and it kind of works out. No one's Gollum. Yeah, but everybody's carrying their own Gollum, of course. Yeah, and that's why I picked that song, because it encompasses so much of the journey of what we had to or experiencing as founders of this company.
Wow. So, I haven't watched the movies, but I do know firsthand that kind of roller coaster up and down of the startup world, and having to deal with your own kind of internal issues and how that may project out onto others and how you lead and how you behave. So I think that makes sense to me. And I'm also kind of thinking of, when you're talking about journey, the song itself goes on quite a journey. It's quite complex. There are different sections and parts where you kind of feel different emotions or different things depending on where you jump in, which kind of got me thinking about, okay, back to this idea of kind of tagging, or whatever you want to call it, categorization of music. How would you kind of reconcile this shifting emotion within a song? Could you say, hey, this song is uplifting and it's da da da? How would you kind of tackle that?
Yeah, great. Absolutely great question, right? Sometimes a song has so many dynamics, especially when we look at classical music, right? So tagging is, as we look at it today, is really like one global tag per song. This song is X, this song is Y. So what we've introduced really early on already is looking deeper into the track, so like the decluttering the entire tagging world in songs, and then looking on a second per second basis, like what is going on in the song, really capturing the dynamics of the song, like how are the emotions, how they're developing, the energy curve. Like you can really you can see that in our web app. We map it out, where the song is the most romantic, right? And then you have these curves where the song is most rock, or where there's a male or female vocals coming in, instruments that are coming in and out. All of these things that help people understand music better and jump to the right part in the song quicker, because it's very rarely, somebody says like, hey, here, I have this film scene and I need a 3-minute 16 song for that. Rarely you get the opportunity to put an entire song in there. You probably have like 30 seconds, and then what are the 30 seconds in your track that are perfect for that scene, and like guiding you to this quicker. And then also, basing that on numbers is that's definitely one of the big values that we bring in. I invite everybody to just chuck in the Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's insane, like how really you can see all of the different parts just by the emotional graphs. It's absolutely astonishing. Yeah,
it's incredible. So I actually wrote down a few things along the way. So kind of like you're standing in the Indian Ocean analogy. I kind of, at one point I had feeling of being on a cliffside with breaking waves beneath, and then percussion comes in, and I've got riding through a forest on a fast horse.
Oh, okay.
And then after that, I've just got epic. It kind of builds after that.
Awesome.
I guess I'm curious to know, if you were to like reverse engineer using that song or using that track in something, like what kind of prompt would you put in? How would you discover the Lord of the Rings theme if you were trying to use it for yourself?
Wow. Okay. So trying to prompt it in the hopes that right, a system like ours would serve it. Oh, that is a tough question, right? But yeah, I mean, it's great. It's amazing. But something like journey among friends and partners, or like friends and partners that embark on a journey that takes them to so much, like further places than they ever imagined. Really, again, like taking the journey and sort of like this discovery into the world, and then also maybe something also around the suffer. Like like there will be suffering involved in the journey, but ultimately you will conquer this suffering, and win against or win over this. I'll stay more on the abstract rather than in the running over a field or like I'm climbing a mountain.
I think that's incredible that we could get that kind of abstract with the description, because that is exactly how people think, like you say, natural language versus, adventurous, swashbuckling, epic, fun, that kind of thing, which obviously you can apply to a song or a track. But getting into that idea of, like you say, the feeling of a journey, overcoming a challenge. I also think maybe suffering will get you the Lykke Li song if you kind of did it just right, suffering with a bit of uplift and a little melancholy and pop. I think that's the beauty of coming back to that first track. Scandi, like slightly dark, but also kind of uplifting. All right. Well, thanks for that. So time to move on again to a completely different track. This one is Shut Up by Stormzy. I'd love to hear from you how we get from Lord of the Rings to Stormzy.
First of all, I want to make clear that it's not about the track title. I don't want anybody to shut up. It was really about like what's special about that song. And this is where we're coming now. Like, first song was about myself, my experience. Second one is like about the journey. And third one is really about us as a founders group, like the 3 founders. So like we get away once a year, somewhere, like any random place, sometimes in Germany, sometimes outside of Germany, where we just really come together and talk about the concept of the company, even higher than strategy, like really like, what does it encapsulate? What is this, the part of the journey? What does it give us? And how can we transform that company to make sure that it, always serves us and the team rather than us serving it? And the first time we did that was in 2020. So in the height of the Corona pandemic, no one really knew what was going on. And everybody just like kept on running even faster, just as sort of like an impulse to deal with this uncertainty. And for us, it was really important to just like hold once, like, we were running 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day, work days. It's absolutely insanity. And then we are just halting and then coming down and then talking about it and then putting on the fireplace in some Airbnb in Eastern Germany. And then just like sitting there and like drinking beer and then, wow, wow, what is going on here? Even like, let's talk about it. And then we were playing a song that I just recently found. And it was this super random, like 90s hip hop crew, like beat maker crew who made this track, like, and I can't even remember how it was called, right? And we were playing this and we were absolutely vibing to it. Like, it was really like sort of a cathartic, like bonding kind of moment. And then later on, we actually discovered that Stormzy had just sampled that exact, like, it was so random because we found that at the most random place, this beat. And then it came out that Stormzy had actually sampled it in his track Shut Up. Then, of course, like every time we go away, like at some point, I guarantee you somebody will put on Stormzy Shut Up, like because of this, first moment, because no one can remember how the original song was called, but we can remember the Stormzy one, so that will do.
So I think I can help you with that. I think the original beat is kind of like a grime instrumental from about 10 years prior to when Stormzy did his freestyle.
Right.
So I think it's Rough Squad.
Rough Squad. Yes.
Yeah. The producer is XTC.
Not
and
bad.
it's very much that type of wily kind of esky grime beat kind of thing, which is interesting to your point that like something was made and it was found later, or it was, repurposed because of the vibe or because of what the original beat was trying to communicate. Someone else took it, used that as a vehicle, which I think is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Oh, let's go. Yeah, Rough Squad. That's what's up. Like, I have to check it out.
In a way, Stormzy's track, to bring it back to the previous one, in a way, he was answering his golems, not necessarily his internal demons, but Shut Up was a response to what people were saying about him at the time. If I recall, Kanye West was at the Brit Awards and he brought like a bunch of UK MCs on the stage. And Stormzy was one of them. And I think someone called him like a backup dancer, which is why he's got that backup dancer line in there.
All right.
So yeah, to kind of bring it back to what you were saying, I guess it is a kind of response as well to, trying to create something and overcome, I guess, albeit in a different way. Like you say, you're not telling people to shut up yourself, but
no, but I mean, that's such a, like, it's such an incredible thought, actually, like, to take this sort of as a metaphor to the internal goal, to like, to shut up. And not as many, Stormzy's regard is like, of course, like, external factors and other people. And like, the ultimate goal is, of course, to not care about, what other people think about you and just like, be on your own journey and really like involved in that. But being able to overcome these things, like, these internal driver and push and pull effects within you. No, it's really, really great way of thinking about it.
Well, you brought it to the table. I mean, yeah, I think the journey you've taken us on is kind of the blueprint for how you are running the company and how you and, let's call it, the fellows are helping to create the company that you want. And I think that's an interesting way to look at it, especially in the context of this kind of music moment kind of thing, is actually what's the moment right now, day to day within the company, within your life, and how do you create that to be what you want it to be and get to where you want to go. And so I think that's been really interesting to go through.
Awesome. Yeah. No, for me too.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for that. Before we go, is there anything else you want to shout out? And where can people go to find out more about Cyanite?
Yeah, if you go to Cyanite.ai, you probably find everything that you need. So we have a web app where you can create an account for free. So we give you 5 analysis credits per month for free. You can just drop in your music, upload it to the platform, and it will be immediately automatically tagged. So in the first step, over 130,000 DIY artists are currently using the platform to get accurate metadata to then take to the DSPs and upload that in their distribution process. If you have a larger catalog of music, also you can tag that through the web app, through the API, just reach out and then see what we can set up there.
Got it. Cool. So whether you're a distributor, publisher, library owner, or an artist who wants just better meta descriptions for their music, go to Cyanite.ai and check it out.
Exactly. This was fun. Thanks so much, Tom.